Here's the bottom line for the Democrats right now. And look, I don't mean this as a partisan. I really genuinely do not mean this as a conservative, Republican, Christian, evangelical partisan. I don't. And I know a lot of you will take it that way. But the problem for the Democratic Party right now is a very large contingent, almost half of the United States doesn't like the Democratic Party right now. It was not that long ago that major news outlets and the Democrats were focusing on the end of the Republican Party, the extinction of the Republican Party, and yet it is the Democrats who are on the verge of that extinction. They will not, because politics is cyclical, the pendulum will swing, and there is no permanence in American politics. The problem for the Democrats at this moment, as an outsider looking in, is their values and their policy choices align with an increasingly diminished group of people who a majority of Americans do not relate to, and who a majority of Americans believe hold them in contempt. College-educated white women in particular. They are the only group of voters in America right now who give Joe Biden favorable reviews by a majority. They are the most likely to believe in and advocate for transgenderism. They are the most likely to believe in and advocate for critical race theory being woven into school curricula. They are the most likely to support student loan forgiveness. They are the most likely to support big government spending programs. And they are the most likely to support censoriousness, the censoring of those they disagree with, the silencing of dissent. And it's killing the Democratic Party with voters. Y'all, culture matters. Culture matters when people feel like their culture is under attack. Along the border, not just in Texas, but in California, New Mexico, and Arizona, Hispanic voters are increasingly becoming conservative because they are overwhelmingly Christian. And they feel like their culture is under attack. White women call them Latinx. They don't even use that word in Spanish. It's not a word that can be produced in Spanish. And yet they have people like Elizabeth Warren calling them Latinx. They see what's happening in schools. Their countries immigrated from South American and Central American countries because of a fight against and a flee from socialism. And you have Democrats in this country advocating socialism, open, bragging about and support of socialism. You have the transgender issue. And for those of you who are in the LGBTQ community, for those of you who are progressive, for those of you who live in urban areas who are white and college educated, I cannot emphasize enough to you how this issue kills your support culturally with other people, because overwhelmingly it's not bigotry, it's not transphobia, it's not homophobia, it is basic biological science that it cannot be so. And your idea to advance that agenda is to shut up anyone who disagrees with you. And that infuriates parents. The Atlanta Journal-Constitution, where I am, has an education columnist who's a progressive. The state of Georgia passed a law to restrict boys-to-boys sports and girls-to-girls sports. And the education columnist handed her column over to a mother who was aggrieved that her daughter would not be able to play sports, and made that the sympathetic child, made that the victim, where most parents see their daughters, regardless of even partisanship, because there are a lot of Democrats who privately disagree with this issue, and because they're too scared to speak up, you don't realize it, but I hear from them. And to make the boy whose mother's decided with him that he's a girl the victim here, as opposed to the girls who will be outperformed on the playing field by a boy with testosterone, drives people crazy. And the fact that you'll be mad at me and want to silence me and not have me say these things angers more people. The fact that you want to bail out student loans and forgive student loans for people who have well-paying jobs angers a lot of people. The fact that you refuse to produce more oil, you've shut down the Keystone XL pipeline, something 60% of Americans support. You've shut down exploration of the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge, something that 70% of Americans support. And you're bragging about higher oil prices and how we need to convert everyone to battery-powered cars when there's not even enough batteries out there for everyone to get into these cars. It infuriates Americans. You may epistemically believe all of these things, but you must understand that most Americans don't. And the fact that you're unyielding, uncompromising, and censorious against those who believe you or disagree with you, rather, it makes people not like you. You all on the left decided that as long as you were not Donald Trump, who you viewed as an existential threat to America, and as long as you were not him, and you showed people you were not him, that Americans would like you. You profoundly misunderstood the dynamics of the United States of America in the 21st century. People did not like Donald Trump, but they liked his policies. And Donald Trump lost in November of 2020, not because of a stolen election, but because people thought maybe Biden will return us to normalcy. We're kind of tired of the theatrics of Donald Trump. We're kind of tired of his bullying. And instead, you people took Donald Trump's bullying and put it on steroids. And now the backlash is coming for you. And until you can understand that most Americans feel like their culture is under attack by you, it's not the message. It's not the messaging. It's not disinformation. It's not misinformation. It's not Republican lies. It's you. It's you. And I realize I say this as a partisan from the right, as an outsider, but I can see this. I try to be as analytical as possible, even calling out my own party, calling out people like Marjorie Taylor Greene. But you've got to see it for yourself, or you're going to continue to be political losers for the time being. Why? Because this country's founders were very wise, far wiser than us. And they decided the way this country has to advance is to find some level of accommodation between rural and urban divides. And so they came up with the Senate to represent the states equally, and they came up with the Electoral College to balance out the forces of populous states against states that aren't as populist or have so many people in them. And you've got to understand that you no longer, as a party, operate within the rules of the game as structured by the founders of this republic. And your response is to call them systemically racist and try to delegitimize them. The problem is you're still bound by those rules. So you got to figure out how to win elections. And if you want to win elections outside of major urban population centers, you got to figure out how not to make people feel threatened by your cultural agenda against them. It's not just the economy. The economy is the precipitating factor, but it's also you make people feel like their culture in their community cannot coexist with you, and they've gotten defensive about it. And if you don't change, you're going to stay a minority power in this country, even as you continue to dominate urban areas, causing you to have a 50-50 split in the popular vote. It's not going to matter because the founders of this country structured the country so that the majority population vote does not matter in the Senate or the presidency or among the several states themselves.